With the death of civil rights activist Dr. Bernard Lafayette, I went back in the archive to see the many times he visited with News Channel 5.
And so it was Nashville that actually appropriated the nonviolent strategies and the movements to other places.
In these visits, he was often sharing his story with the group, and big moments of Lafayette's story were part of Carlton Wilkinson's childhood.
Proud to know that Bernard Lafayette was part of us.
Wilkinson's mother was C.O.W.S. Wilkinson.
We were very much involved as a family in the civil rights movement. She worked through the church, First Baptist Capitol Hill.
And there, Wilkinson's mother was helping students organize the Nashville Sit-ins, a 1960 effort to desegregate lunch counters in downtown Nashville. That effort included Woolworths.
It was just around me, people coming to the home, John Lewis and Bernard Lafayette, and he was just around. He was there. He was connected.
Also in 1960, Lafayette helped in creating the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The hope was to change Nashville, change the country.
Dr. Lafayette just had tireless energy.
And the sit-ins were just the beginning. In 2007, Vanderbilt University retraced the 1961 route into Alabama of the Freedom Rides. Invited to take the trip with them were original Freedom Riders, including Lafayette. The original riders challenged segregation of bus seating. An interesting detail is Wilkinson's mom once arranged for the group's bail. Over on Jefferson Street, there are these pictures of important figures in the community. Dr. Bernard Lafayette has just died of a heart attack at 85. His picture here is next to other important names in civil rights like John Lewis and Diane Nash. And actually, on a column just up and over is C.O.W.S. Wilkinson, and her son so glad to have grown up around people who set out to make change and did.
His passing is very sad, but he lived a long life as a leader and African griot. A griot is someone who keeps the records. They would be that individual who would teach history. Dr. Lafayette was one of the principals in changing culture in Nashville and in the southern United States. And that's major.
I'm Forrest Sanders, News Channel 5.
Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place.
You couldn't be hungry around him. No one could be in want. Just had a very genuine, gentleman personality. Just a real Detroiter.
And right now, that's how friends are remembering Detroit restaurant owner Michael Brown, better known as Mike B. He was killed in a triple shooting outside a West Side bar over the weekend. Now, as friends mourn, some community leaders are renewing calls for the city to crack down on after-hour spots.
The triple shooting happened around 4:30 a.m. Saturday outside Suite 100 near Finkel and Schaefer, and 2 other people survived. Detroit police are still looking for a suspect. Lauren Kostick joins us live. And Lauren, one person who knew him says Mike B. was just the kind of guy who always made sure people were taken care of.
That's exactly right. It's clear how much he meant to this community. So many people are posting on social media, sharing memories and honoring his legacy. Also, at the same time, Detroit police here at the 2nd Precinct are trying to find the person or people responsible for this triple shooting. And community leaders are saying this shooting is also raising a lot of questions about bars after hours. A father and successful business owner shot and killed over the weekend in Detroit.
Detroit loves him. He was a real Detroiter who was about people, community, and about uplifting life.
Michael Brown, better known as Mike B., was shot Saturday morning around 4:30 outside Suite 100 near Finkel and Schaefer on the city's west side. 2 others were hurt but survived. As of Monday, no one has been arrested. Mike B. was a staple in Detroit's hospitality and entertainment scenes for decades, known for his restaurants including Sloppy Chops and Sloppy Crab. Messages and memories have been pouring in on social media, including this tribute from a local restaurant critic calling the news heartbreaking. But his legacy extended far beyond food and nightlife. He cared deeply for his community.
It was embedded in him, and you could feel it in his food, in his restaurant, and his demeanor when you approach him. Very approachable, just love the city of Detroit, love its people.
Now, his death is sparking renewed calls for an ordinance on after-hour establishments, limiting how late businesses can operate in neighborhood areas. New Era Detroit posted this video over the weekend.
Enjoy yourself, have a good time with your people, and then go home. It's that simple. Go home.
And Pastor Mo agrees, saying it's time the city stepped in.
We're definitely probably going to see an ordinance come down. And we're going to make sure that from a community standpoint, we're going to make sure we have our foot on that too.
Again, so many people posting about Mike B tonight. We also spoke to his brother earlier today, but understandably he is still trying to process all of this. We also reached out to DPD. All they could tell us is that this investigation remains ongoing and that there are no new updates. Of course, anyone with information is asked to call 1-800-SPEAK-UP. Live in Detroit, Lauren Kostick, Local 4.
A tremendous loss for the Detroit community. Okay, Lauren, we appreciate your report this evening.
Hitler had the supreme fascist state. And what was he worried about in Europe and in Germany? He was worried about white genetic annihilation. What is everybody in Europe worried about now? White genetic annihilation. All these people from Syria coming up in here.
To justify mass deportations, the Trump administration says they're deporting the, quote, worst of the worst. They've been blasting this messaging out on a near daily basis on X, formerly known as Twitter, since last March. NPR's Ho Jing-nan is here to help us parse these claims. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you describe what these posts on X look like and why they stuck out to you?
So DHS, ICE, and now the White House have been highlighting a bunch of people they've detained during their immigration enforcement operations. In the last year, DHS and ICE have posted about over 2,000 people. And each post typically featured the person's name, nationality, and the criminal history, sometimes with emojis or labels like criminal illegal alien and worst of the worst. And they always come with a photo.
You looked into these claims. Is it fair for the government to be labeling these detainees the worst of the worst?
It might be a stretch in a notable number of cases. So I worked with a team of researchers and archivists here at NPR to take a closer look at the criminal histories of 130 people that DHS and ICE said they took into custody in Minnesota. We were able to find matching names and criminal histories for most of them, but in a quarter of these cases, we found things like old convictions from 20 or 30 years ago, or minor offenses, or cases where people have been arrested or charged but not convicted. And for another quarter of these cases, we were unable to find public records backing up the criminal histories the government said they had. Just stepping back, though, according to ICE's own data, over 70% of the people being detained do not have any criminal records.
Have past administrations ever tried to do anything like this before in terms of this kind of messaging campaign?
I mean, this steady stream of highlighting individuals, the experts I talked to said they haven't seen anything quite like this. C.O.W.S. is an emeritus professor of anthropology at the University of California, Irvine, and he recalled how political campaign ads in past decades have presented images of Latinos without context.
Just by showing their image, showing brown people, particularly brown men, this is supposed to be scary.
He says that coupling the images with criminal histories just heightens the emotional response people might have. I'd also talked to Juliet Stumpf, a professor at Lewis and Clark Law School. She studies the intersection of immigration and criminal law, and she said the posts highlighting individuals obscure the big picture truth of immigrants and crime.
If you look at research, immigrants actually tend to commit fewer crimes than even U.S. citizens do. And that's true of immigrants who have lawful status here and immigrants who don't.
So the campaign focusing on immigrant criminality, Stumpf says, distorts the reality about who immigrants actually are.
What does the administration have to say about these cases?
DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Lauren Biss said in a statement that the fact that NPR is defending murderers and pedophiles is gross. She did not, however, dispute NPR's findings or provide documentation to back up cases where no matching criminal histories can be found.
That's NPR's Huo Jingnan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement is building a sophisticated surveillance web. It is helping federal agents identify and locate people they want to deport. It's also identifying U.S. citizens who are criticizing and protesting the federal government. NPR's Jude Joffe-Block and Meg Anderson have been digging into this, and they're joining us now. Hey there.
Hello. Hi.
So, Meg, I want to start with you. Tell us what you have heard from people who have had interactions with immigration officers.
Yeah, so let me tell you about the experience of one person that really illustrates what we found. Her name is Elle, and NPR is not using her last name because she's worried about retaliation from the federal government. She lives in Minneapolis, and she told us about following ICE around her neighborhood to document their actions.
They would just get out their phones and then come and stand right in front of my car and take pictures of me and take pictures of our license plate. And they frequently would come up to my vehicle and pound on the glass.
Once she said she was following ICE officers and realized that they were driving her to her own home. Whoa. She felt like the officers were trying to intimidate her. We collected dozens of accounts like this, both through interviews and court documents and in other states beyond Minnesota, too.
Okay, so those are the tactics that people are seeing in person. Jude, let me ask you, what do we know about how technology is being used to do things like this?
Yeah, well, in these cases of observers who are driving to document ICE and then agents know their names and, like in Elle's case, know where they live, license plate data seems to be a big part of how these agents are figuring out who the car is registered to. And there's a few ways ICE can get this information, and one is that data brokers buy up this data from state DMVs and sell it to ICE. This technique is also being used on immigrants, too. Agents are looking up license plates they can see on the road or in parking lots to identify whether the car is registered to someone who could be deported.
And, license plate information seems like just the beginning of all of this. And it's worth flagging, these efforts have gotten a lot of funding under this administration, right?
That's right. ICE's budget skyrocketed last year, and that's allowed the agency to invest a lot into new surveillance tech. We also know ICE agents are using facial recognition technology. There's also an app that helps ICE agents find where immigrants who can be deported might live. That's called Elite. It's made by the company Palantir, and one ICE agent described it in court testimony as showing an interface like Google Maps. ICE also has access to a tool that collects data that can be used to track cell phone locations. And this week, more than 70 Democratic members of Congress wrote a letter urging the agency's watchdog to investigate this.
Okay, Meg, one other question is what's happening online.
Yes. So there is surveillance happening online as well. And what we found is it's happening a lot in the form of something called an administrative subpoena. So those can be issued by federal agencies without a judge. And we know that they have already been sent to tech companies demanding to unmask anonymous social media accounts. In this case, accounts that are critical of ICE. We spoke to one man who got an email from Meta. That's the parent company of Instagram and Facebook, alerting him to a subpoena. He had just shared a post that identified an ICE agent using publicly available information. DHS, though, accused him of doxing the agent. He asked a federal court to block the subpoena, and then, later the agency did withdraw it. But Nathan Wessler with the ACLU told us that this is still a threat to free speech, even though the agency withdrew that subpoena.
There's a long tradition going back to the founding of this country where courts have recognized that sometimes the only way to be able to speak safely without fear of retaliation is to do so without your name attacked.
On that note, what legal implications do all of these surveillance tools raise?
Yeah, so legal experts we spoke to brought up concerns in a variety of ways, most notably in threats to the First Amendment. That comes up in the case of those subpoenas and the online criticism. Generally, the right to anonymity is protected. And there are lawsuits in states like Minnesota and Maine alleging that when ICE officers lead people to their homes, things like that amounts to intimidation and violates a protester's freedom of expression. Some lawyers we spoke to also brought up concerns about the Fourth Amendment, which protects people from unreasonable searches. They said some of these tools help DHS access information they would otherwise need a warrant for.
And Jude, what did DHS say about all of this?
Yeah, well, the agency didn't answer all of our questions about these tools or how they're being used, saying they would not, quote, reveal law enforcement methods or tactics. But in a statement to NPR, they refuted claims that these tools are unlawful. When it comes to allegations that facial recognition technology violates the Fourth Amendment, the agency said its use is, quote, governed by established legal authorities and formal privacy oversight. And regarding allegations that the agency is violating the First Amendment, DHS said freedom of speech does not include, quote, rioting. Though, to be clear, the activists we spoke to were engaged in peaceful protests and observation.
That was NPR's Jude Joffe-Block and Meg Anderson. Thanks to you both.
Thanks. Thank you.
Or is it watching me, man? I don't really know. But I feel like I'm being scoped, y'all. Watch, y'all. Something ain't right.
New tonight, a Milwaukee police officer charged with using police equipment to track a romantic partner appears in court for the first time.
Prosecutors say Josue Ayala used license plate readers, the kind used for official police work. Investigative reporter James Stratton live for us tonight. James, we learned Ayala resigned shortly before that hearing.
That, Blake and Rhea, and he appeared in court for the first time. Prosecutors say he used these flock license plate reader cameras to track that partner and that person's ex, searching in that official MPD database, though he was reluctant to talk to 12 News today.
Coming out of court Wednesday, Mr. Ayala, do you have anything to say to the people that you allegedly tracked? No comment from you, sir? Now former MPD officer Josue Ayala offering no comment to 12 News. A couple minutes earlier,
State of Wisconsin versus Josue Ayala.
He saw a court commissioner for the first time, charged with attempted misconduct in public office.
Enter a plea of not guilty, Your Honor.
Prosecutors say he used these flock license plate reader cameras to illegally track a romantic partner and that person's ex. A criminal complaint says he searched their plates in an official database a total of 179 times.
You may be fined not more than $10,000 or in prison not more than 9 months or both. Do you understand the maximum charge and penalty you face today, sir?
Yes, sir. The commissioner released Ayala on a signature bond. Milwaukee police said Wednesday Ayala resigned after a little more than 8 years as an MPD officer. 12 News Investigates obtained his disciplinary record. It shows 3 previous disciplinary actions while he was a Milwaukee police officer. In 2019, MPD suspended him for 3 days without pay for failure to conduct a thorough and careful investigation and wrote him a reprimand for not turning on his body cam. In 2020, MPD suspended him for 10 days for failure to conduct a prompt, thorough, impartial, and careful investigation and file reports. And again, in 2025, a written reprimand for failing to use his car properly. For that single charge, Ayala pleaded not guilty and left with his attorney. No comment from you, sir?
And so, James, prosecutors say the victims found out about the surveillance by searching their plates online.
Using a website, Blake, called haveibeenflocked.com. It uses public records to allow you and me and others to search their plate to see if police have pulled them for an investigation. Prosecutors say Ayala used the word investigation when he searched those partners, that partner and the other person's plates. But Chief Norman tells us that they're required to write the type of investigation and police report. Prosecutors say he didn't do that in this case.
All right, investigative reporter James Stratton on the big story for us tonight. Thanks, James.
The man knot. Race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood.
That's hard for somebody that ain't never really been in no trouble. And we got to sit here, and these people sit here and give us a capital murder charge for something we didn't even do. We get past that and turn right around and then put you in there for life.
A quarter century behind bars, but tonight, the Waverly Two free and sharing their side of the story.
The interview you will see only on 8, coming 10 years after we first learned they'd been found not guilty of killing a Waverly police officer, but ended up sentenced to life in prison anyway.
A president commuted Terrence Richardson and Ferron Claiborne's federal sentences. An attorney general supported overturning the state felony. And of course, they're no longer in a cell, but they tell me they fear they'll never escape the dark cloud hanging over their heads since 1998.
I felt betrayed. Like, how is this even possible?
Nearly 3 decades later.
It's like you thrown straight into the lion's den. You ain't never experienced none of this before.
2 men, baffled and distraught.
These people tried to kill us twice. Twice. They tried to kill us.
Contemplating how they ended up in handcuffs twice and then in federal prison in connection to a 1998 crime they're adamant they didn't commit.
We go in there as young men. We come out, we great. Yeah. I got to stand in the mirror and look at this every day.
Terrence Richardson and Ferron Claiborne say they were shell-shocked when Sussex County prosecutors charged them with killing Waverly police officer Alan Gibson during a struggle with Gibson's gun. But 17 months later, in December 1999, plea deals. For Claiborne, a misdemeanor in freedom that day. For Richardson, felony involuntary manslaughter, 5 years behind bars. There will be a lot of people watching this at home thinking, well, why plead guilty to something you know you didn't do?
I allowed the lawyer to scare me back into it because he's sitting there and said, we understand that even if you didn't do it, they're going to make somebody wear this case, and right now it's y'all. And you're going to get the death penalty. So what are we supposed to do? And it took us 26 years to get out, so where would we be now? We wouldn't even be right here.
The potential fate awaiting them at the time of their state pleas, Virginia's speedy death row executions, within 6 years on average, the fastest in the country. But in our Taking Action team's review of court records, this letter from 9 months before those pleas states the Commonwealth's attorney was not pursuing the death penalty, and at least Richardson's lawyer knew it. Do you feel that exemplifies how weak their case actually was?
I think it exemplifies the fact they knew it wasn't us. Because if you thought that we actually killed, 2 black men actually killed a white police officer, you going for that death penalty.
Did you know that that was not on the table?
He didn't tell us it. Because he told us that day that you could get the death penalty.
Another reason for their pleas, their attorneys and state prosecutors recently testified that in 1999, they didn't know about other evidence that local and state police had, an eyewitness description, a photo lineup, and an anonymous tip, all pointing to a different suspect.
David Chappell, which was the Commonwealth attorney, I think he testified that
he didn't know. He didn't have it.
So he's prosecuting the case, and he didn't have it. It was impossible for us to have it.
Those pieces of evidence supported Officer Gibson's own descriptions before he died, one coming from a 9-year-old girl.
So right around the corner. So when she hears the shot, she ducks over this way to look.
She saw a, quote, fat man with dreadlocks, not a match for either of the so-called Waverly Two.
She gave a description that didn't fit me nor Terrence. And not only that, they disregarded what the officer said, his dying declaration.
A declaration Officer Gibson made right here 28 years ago in the woods next to the Waverly Village Apartments, that complex, a former hangout for the Waverly Two.
No further than from maybe from here to the old air conditioning unit was the police dog. So if I was out here, why that police dog didn't come to me? He would have had my scent. That's what makes me mad.
That anger resurfaced shortly after their 1999 state pleas, as federal prosecutors appeared with new drug charges, and again, charges for Gibson's murder.
They know for a fact that we didn't commit this.
Right.
They went to trial this time in 2001, the federal jury finding them not guilty of murder, but the drug charge, guilty. Then the judge executed a rare legal maneuver using their state guilty pleas to determine their federal sentences. Life with no parole. With no hope. Until our 2017 8 News investigation, when wrongful conviction attorney Jared Adams saw their case.
I mean, this is important to me for a number of different reasons.
Wrongfully convicted himself, Adams argues law enforcement hid the evidence that could have cleared Richardson and Claiborne of everything. Over the years, garnering more support to review their case.
During Christmas time, like, people were sending us cards from, like, United Kingdom, Canada, all over the United States.
By early 2021, then Attorney General Mark Herring learned of their story and of Richardson's petition for a writ of actual innocence to overturn his plea, a process Claiborne's misdemeanor plea isn't eligible for. But Herring's team's review did find, quote, no rational fact finder would have found Richardson guilty had all the evidence been presented. Then Jason Miyares won the AG race and reversed that position.
It's 10,000 pages to this case. There's no way you did it in 29 days.
Without the state support, Richardson has faced an uphill battle across various state courts for the past 4 years.
Well, we got to keep on wearing a title of a cop killer?
Living in fear, coming home and still being uneasy because of, the title.
Back at the Supreme Court last month, they're now waiting to see if Richardson will get one last opportunity to make his case there.
We get to walk out of this courtroom not only with hope, but we get to walk out with the freed men behind us.
But because last year, former President Joe Biden commuted their life sentences for the drug convictions, they are at least home. They say they're working constantly to get readjusted.
We had to flip phones and pagers.
Hanging out together and with family, writing more books like the ones they wrote together in prison, even designing a clothing line. And they keep praying Richardson is granted his writ of actual innocence so they might both be cleared one day.
I'm reaching out to Jay Jones and whoever else is in position to help us.
Go back and look at what Mark Hearn and their integrity unit did. They took months to go back and investigate. They went and talked to people. Are you saying that they was wrong?
Do you feel optimistic you're going to get the outcome you want eventually?
Eventually. And I don't know how long that journey is. Only God knows.
They are in part eager to get help from Attorney General Jones because when he was a state delegate, he was critical of then AG Mark Herring's handling of the case. His office says he cannot comment now until the Supreme Court decides. But 4 years ago, he said both men deserved a full review of their case. That is somewhat similar to what we heard in 2020 from Officer Gibson's daughter, Chrisanna Gibson. At the time, she sent us a statement saying, quote, I want the persons responsible for my father's murder to be held fully accountable for their actions. If that is not Terrence and Farron, I want justice done for them, and it must not stop there. However, it's important to note that last year she did publicly post on social media saying she does believe the Waverly Two killed her father. I did try multiple ways to reach out to her and the Gibson family to understand how they're feeling about this now, and I haven't heard back yet.
Two things strike me in watching that piece. One, this is a very emotional time for both of them.
Yes, and it is because they've missed so much with their families, right? And they're kind of reminded about that every day. And they were really adamant that they wanted to talk about why they pleaded guilty. A lot of people may not know this, but even for people who are exonerated by DNA evidence, at least 10 to 20% of those people pleaded guilty. So we do see people plead guilty to things that they didn't commit. What they want the state to determine is that that's them as well.
Second thing that struck me is though they are walking around right now outside of prison, they are free, but they don't feel free.
No, and in addition to just like federal restrictions that they're still under, they just feel like this dark cloud follows them everywhere they go. Their supporters believe them, but they feel like they're still kind of up against the wall. And frankly, they wonder, even if the state overturns the plea, whether that will change hearts and minds for everyone.
That's a harder thing to do.
Yeah. Well, for our full coverage of this story, you can scan this QR code here. It will take you to our landing page with complete coverage from start to finish at WRIC.com.
Why haven't you learned anything?
We start with HISD parents who say they're waiting for answers now that their child's school will close in a matter of months. Some telling us they want to know about transportation, teachers, and what will happen to their current school. Our Nick Notario has been trying to get some of these answers from the district. He joins us live from the newsroom. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brianna. After the state board that was appointed decided to close 12 of these schools, we wanted to get more answers. So first thing this morning, we reached out to the district and said, hey, can we talk to Superintendent Mike Miles, maybe someone else, to try and get some of these answers for parents. Instead, HISD responded saying that they would not make anyone available, and they pointed us to the district's website. On the website, there is a FAQ there where there are some answers, but there's not everything there to let parents know what's going to happen now. Now, during a tense board meeting last night, dozens of parents and community members urged the board to either delay the vote or go against it. Instead, the state-appointed board voted 9-0 in favor of the closures. The district gave parents 2 weeks' notice before the decision was made. The parents told HISD leaders It wasn't enough time to talk about safety, transportation, and what will happen to the schools. On the district's website, it says transportation plans are still being worked out. They say one option is for parents to have their kids go to the closed campus for the next 2 years, where a shuttle will take them to their new campus. HISD also says more meetings with families will take place. However, it's not enough for some parents we spoke to.
They're sending out bulletins and text messages and stuff like that, but they said that they were going to call every parent and speak with them, but that hasn't happened.
They just gave me one, they told me a school option, but it's not, I really don't know the extent of, I don't even know if I want my baby going to that school.
Now, the district has laid out plans of where these students will go, their new schools, and to get them acclimated to those buildings. The district says that there will be campus tours, but there's no information on the website about exactly when that will take place. They also say there will be more information, including timelines, posted on HISD's website, but that's a problem for some parents. They say they wish all this information was presented for them now ahead of the board's decision. Live in the newsroom, Nick Notorio, ABC 13 Eyewitness News. Brianna?
Still a lot to come with this one. A big story, Nick. Thank you.
Deep in the heart. What'd you say now? I said deep in the heart. I can't hear you. Deep in the heart. Where's that? Of Texas.
A campaign billboard in Texas has sparked a fierce national conversation, not just about politics, but about identity. When Indian origin state House candidate Pooja Sethi was mocked online by a conservative commentator, the debate quickly shifted from policy to heritage. But Sethi didn't stay silent. With one targeted response, she turned a social media swipe into a broader discussion about belonging. Here's our report.
In the combustible world of American politics, sometimes a single photograph can light a match. A campaign billboard bearing the words Pooja Sethi did exactly that. She is a Texas State House candidate from District 47. It all began when conservative commentator Savannah Hernandez posted an image of the sign on X with the caption, "Welcome to Politics in Texas." The commentator went on to note that the Indian origin Democrat supports gun reform, abortion rights, and had previously worked as an immigration attorney for Catholic Charities. But the debate did not stay on policy for long. Instead, it veered towards identity. Sethi did not take the comment well and fired back with a tweet.
My heritage isn't an insult. It's my story. And like millions of Americans, it's rooted in hard work, faith in this country, and service to our community. If that bothers you, that says more about you than it does about me.
Critics and online trolls chose to escalate the rhetoric rather than dial it down. One user mocked the controversy, writing, "It's funny how even their names revolve around poop." Another took a more hardline stance, declaring, "We need to outlaw foreigners from holding office." The comments grew sharper from there. Anyone with the word poo in their name should be deported immediately. Anyone disagree? One post read, while another broadened the attack, claiming, "They ruined the hotel industry in America. What other great thing do we have to look forward to?" Supporters were quick to applaud what they viewed as a dignified yet firm rebuttal. One user wrote, "I'm absolutely fine with this, as long as they are a full citizen, uphold the Constitution, and ensure their actions reflect their campaign promises." Another commenter didn't mince words, saying, "People like Savannah Hernandez are exactly why there is so much hatred in the country right now." Others steered the conversation back to substance over identity. "I care more about their policies than their name," one person noted, while another added pointedly that they wouldn't vote for a Hernandez either. But who is the woman at the center of the storm? Sethi is hardly a political newcomer. She has served as Chief of Staff to Texas State Representative Vicki Goodwin and previously chaired the Travis County Democratic Party. She has nearly 4 years of experience in the Texas legislature, yet her candidacy has unfolded against a broader backdrop. Indian origin public figures in the United States have increasingly found themselves targeted online, accused of replacing American workers or taking over institutions. A rhetoric that has intensified alongside renewed scrutiny of the H-1B visa program and the rising visibility of Indian American leaders in public life.
I don't want us to lose sight that things are getting better. Each successive generation seems to be making progress in changing attitudes when it comes to race. Doesn't mean we're in a post-racial society. It doesn't mean that racism is eliminated. But you know, when I talk to Malia and Sasha, and I listen to their friends and I see them interact, they're better than we are. They're better than we were on these issues. And that's true in every community that I've visited all across the country.
Miami-Dade Republicans are calling for one of their own to resign, and police are now investigating.
NBC6 political reporter Steve Litz has the details from FIU.
A chat on WhatsApp is rocking the Republican Party of Miami-Dade County and Florida International University, and it's leading to calls for Abel Carvajal, Dade's GOP party secretary, to step down from his post, including from state Republicans like Miami-Dade State Representative Juan Porras.
Better education needs to be done for our youth. I think they're being misled by some very harmful individuals that are being paid to spew this propaganda by outside sources.
NBC has not independently verified the chat. The Floridian, an online publication, was first to report on it, posting screenshots that show racist, anti-Semitic, and violent comments. Even more concerning, according to the article, is who's on the chat. Miami-Dade GOP Party Secretary Abel Carvajal and students with connections to the FIU College Republicans and Turning Point USA chapter. Carvajal has not responded to our calls or text messages, but he told the Miami Herald he started the chat after Charlie Kirk was killed, adding he had not seen much of the content and was shocked by some of the messages in the chat, which the Herald says verified with 2 people in the group. Democrats are also responding.
This is just another symptom of the same problem we've been seeing over and over and over again from the MAGA base, and they're not even keeping it quiet anymore. They're explicitly saying the quiet part out loud.
FIU's president confirms a criminal investigation is underway, writing in a statement, "We take these allegations very seriously. The alleged conduct continues to be investigated by the FIU Police Department in coordination with local, state, and federal law enforcement."
We did contact Turning Point USA, and we have not heard back from them. And in a statement from the FIU College Republicans, they denounced the chat, writing this: "These actions are not representative of our organization and have no place in our community," adding this was not a college Republican chat. Live outside FIU in Southwest Miami-Dade, I'm Steve Litz, NBC6 News.
Breaking news out of Georgia. This has just happened in the last hour or so. The father of an alleged school shooter has been found guilty of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. Colin Gray's son, Colt Gray, is accused of opening fire at Appalachia High School in 2024, killing 2 students and 2 teachers and injuring 9 others. His father was accused of providing his teenage son access to that firearm used to carry out the shooting. Well, this marks the second school shooting now where a parent has been held criminally responsible for their child's actions. You may remember in 2024, James and Jennifer Crumbley were both found guilty of involuntary manslaughter for a mass shooting committed by their son Ethan at Oxford High School. That was in Michigan. Let's bring in NBC's Aaron Gilchrist. He has been watching this verdict unfold. Aaron, tell us more.
Well, Savannah, you note that the fact that this is a parent who's being held responsible for the alleged crimes of his child, and this sort of takes it up another level, because in the Crumbley case, we were talking about involuntary manslaughter. In this case, we're talking about second-degree murder charges. Colin Gray was found guilty on 2 counts of second-degree murder for the 2 students who were killed in that school shooting at Appalachia High School back in 2024. And this case is sort of unique because there were also charges of cruelty to children. And in order to convict on that second-degree murder charge, you had to convict on the cruelty to children charge in this case. And really the narrative that prosecutors used as the sort of umbrella narrative in their presentation over the course of 2 weeks and 60-plus witnesses was that because Colin Gray gave his son a weapon or gave him access to a weapon, that he knew could be used to hurt people, and that he knew his son had exhibited signs over the years, warning signs, if you will, over the years that he could harm someone. In giving him the weapon, despite knowing that information, he was guilty of cruelty to children. There were, I think, 18 counts of cruelty to children, to include students, other students who were shot but not killed, to include students who were in the classroom where the shooting happened and traumatized by it. Many of them testified in the early days of this trial about the trauma that they experienced, about the injuries that they had. And so all those counts combined together really helped the prosecution to create a picture for this jury that it took them less than 2 hours to make a decision about. They were able to ask for, the jury actually asked to get the case last night. There were some technical things, some legal things that prevented that from happening. They got it just after 9 o'clock this morning, and again, in less than 2 hours, the jury came back with a verdict of guilty on all 27 charges that were against this father. And I think it's also worth pointing out, in this particular case, the prosecutors came out afterwards and said that it was really the multitude of warnings that this father got that the jury really zeroed in on and led them to the decision that they ultimately made today, Savannah.
Maybe something we continue to see more of as a essentially second of its kind case convicts a parent. Aaron Gilchrist, thank you very much for your reporting here.
This city, these people, making the rest of us feel like we don't belong. But they know better than us. Look at how they treat their children. Mark my words, Mr. Resendez. If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one.
First at 5, a new and sweeping report by the Rhode Island Attorney General examined decades of child sex abuse by priests at the Roman Catholic Diocese of Providence. I'm Mike Montecalvo.
And I'm Shannon Heggie. The AG says his office reviewed 250,000 records dating back to the 1950s. Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with what to know. Tim?
More than 300 victims, 72 priests credibly accused. Decades of systemic cover-ups. That was the conclusion of the report released earlier today, but the diocese claims that was the church of old.
These are the priests that we have added.
After a near 7-year examination of one secret church archives and personnel files dating back to 1950, Attorney General Peter Nerona released a major report examining child sexual abuse by priests in the Diocese of Providence.
This is a slide I call Heartbreak by the Numbers.
The report found the survivors of sexual abuse were predominantly male, between the ages of 11 and 14 years old, and it took 26 years on average for survivors to report abuse. The last documented case of abuse happened in 2011, but Nerona says the church continued to fail its flock.
And don't tell me this is history.
He says then Bishop Thomas Tobin wrote a letter to the Vatican in 2022 telling officials in Rome that while the actions of one credibly accused priest were repugnant, the priest had conducted his ministry in exemplary fashion and without scandal.
If anybody out there, whether you're sitting in this room or out in the public, can reconcile those two phrases, okay, in 2022, you tell me. You tell me.
As your bishop, I take this responsibility very seriously. There are no credibly accused clergy in active ministry.
Bishop Bruce Lewandowski, Tobin's recently appointed successor, released a video to parishioners on Wednesday. He says the church has made great strides and implemented mandatory reporting policies.
The report statistically shows that these long-standing measures have been very effective. This commitment is ongoing and is integral to the church's life and mission.
Lawmakers are again considering a bill that would give survivors more time to file a civil suit against the diocese if they were victims of sexual abuse, and a detective who worked on this report says they will always investigate allegations criminally.
We want survivors and anyone with information to know that it is never too late to come forward, even if the abuse occurred many, many years ago.
Mike and Shannon, among the proposed changes, Nerona is also again pushing lawmakers to change the second-degree sexual assault law. Right now, the statute of limitations on that is 3 years. For victims under 18 years old, he wants that window to be 10 years.
Tim, no one new is getting criminally charged as a result of this report.
Yeah, no, Mike, no one new is being charged here. I will say 4 priests were charged while they were conducting the examination. 1 priest has since died, and 3 others are awaiting trial. But this is interesting. Nerona did say his prosecutors looked at whether anyone from inside the administration of the diocese should be charged, or the church itself. But in the end, he says the evidence just wasn't there.
All right, Tim, thank you.
First, we have a list of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Following President Trump's mass pardon of his supporters who stormed the Capitol and assaulted police on January 6, 2021, dozens have since been rearrested. This week, 1 pardoned rioter was sentenced to life in prison for sexually abusing young children. NPR's Tom Dreisbach has more.
Members of the jury, you have been selected and sworn as the jury to try the case of the state of Florida versus Andrew Paul Johnson.
Andrew Paul Johnson is a handyman from Florida, 45 years old, and a pardoned January 6th rioter. He was actually in prison when Trump freed him, and just 7 months later, he was back in police custody.
He was charged with 1 count of lewd or lascivious molestation of a child, 2 counts of lewd or lascivious exhibition by...
Johnson was accused of sexually abusing 2 middle school-aged kids, a boy and a girl. Both of them testified at his trial. NPR doesn't name the victims of sexual abuse, and we're not going to play the audio of their voices, but I can tell you what they said. The boy testified that when he was 11, Johnson met his mom. Johnson stayed on their couch, helped out around the house, and at first, he seemed kind of like a father figure. He'd take the boy paintballing or to nearby pools.
While Andrew lived in your house, did he ever touch you inappropriately?
The boy told the prosecutor, Casey Whitson, yes. The first time it happened, the boy said he was too scared to say anything. Then it happened again.
So the first time you didn't say anything to him, but the second time you said something to him?
Yes, ma'am, the boy said.
Did he say anything back?
He said not to tell anybody, the boy said. The abuse stopped. Johnson reported to prison on his January 6th riot charges. But because of President Trump's pardon, Johnson got out. He went back to Florida, and the abuse resumed. Sexual messages, exposing himself, and physical abuse of both the boy and his best friend, a 12-year-old girl. One day, the boy's mom found concerning messages on his computer and tried to get the kids to tell her what was going on.
Did it take some time for you to get to a place where you told her everything?
We were scared, the girl testified. Like we didn't realize this stuff was not okay because we were 12 years old.
Mr. Johnson, at this time, the jury, having found you guilty of those 5 counts...
Johnson was convicted, and on Thursday, he was sentenced to life in prison. Part of what makes Johnson's case so notable is that he also tried to bribe the kids into silence, according to police. Johnson told them he was going to get rich because he expected the Trump administration to give pardoned January 6th defendants millions in restitution money. And that's something that multiple Trump administration officials have actually proposed. Here's U.S. pardon attorney Ed Martin last year.
I am for when somebody gets wronged and destroyed by their government that they be taken care of, that they try to make them whole insofar as they can. That's only fair.
Democrats argue Trump's pardons have made January 6th defendants think they're above the law.
They think they're untouchable.
Jamie Raskin is a congressman from Maryland. He's co-sponsored a bill to prevent the Trump administration from paying restitution money to pardoned January 6th defendants and said Trump should take accountability for the case of Andrew Paul Johnson.
It was only because Donald Trump let him out of prison that he was able to continue his sickening pattern of child sexual abuse. What is the president's response to that? Does he take responsibility for what's happened?
I reached out both to the Department of Justice and the White House. They did not respond. They also haven't addressed the allegations against dozens of other pardoned rioters. Just this week, Brian Bettencourt was arrested for assault and battery after an incident on the Washington, D.C. Metro. And then there's Jake Lang. On the 5th anniversary of the riot, Lang told me he was proud of hitting police with a baseball bat on January 6th.
And you think it was justified to use that bat to assault that policeman?
I think that our founding fathers would have done that. The tar and feather would have been ready, and they would have probably removed those people from office permanently.
Later that same day, he encountered one of the police officers who held the line against the mob. Lang started loudly berating him.
You deserve to be put down like a dead dog. Disgusting animal.
The D.C. police later determined that Lang's tirade amounted to a criminal threat. And when Lang came back to D.C. this past weekend, he was arrested and pleaded not guilty. He says he did nothing wrong. Tom Dreisbach, NPR News.
Why is the car shaking?
Did you fill her up before we started?
Why would I fill it up?
Well, who goes on a road trip without filling up the tank?
Oil prices have spiked this week since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran, and that's pushing up U.S. gasoline prices, too. NPR's Camila Dominowski covers energy and joins us now. Camila, thanks so much for being with us.
Happy to be here.
And what's the latest?
Well, prices really shot up yesterday. For the first half of the week, prices were up, but Rebecca Babin, an oil trader, told me on Monday that markets were not panicking. Well, she emailed me on Friday afternoon and said, quote, panic has officially set in, as in oil traders are panicking now. The global benchmark for crude closed for the weekend at a little under $93 a barrel. That's up from $70 before the attack. And these higher crude prices have pushed up gasoline more than 14%, which is a bigger week-on-week jump than we saw after Russia invaded Ukraine.
What changed from Monday to Friday?
Well, hopes for a quick resolution to the conflict faded over those days. We have also seen attacks on oil infrastructure in countries across the Gulf region. But above all, there is this key waterway folks have heard about, right? Here's Halima Croft with RBC Capital Markets earlier this week.
The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively a parking lot, with tankers avoiding going through the critical waterway that accounts for 20% of global oil and LNG exports.
LNG is liquefied natural gas, and 20%, right? Mm-hmm. Iran has threatened to close this strait many times before, but never actually done it. And the near halt of ships passing through has had knock-on effects as the days passed, right? Iraq and most recently Kuwait have had to stop some oil production because there is simply nowhere to put it.
How is Iran keeping the strait closed?
Yeah, it's not physically blocked. Some ships have actually gotten through. But Iran has attacked multiple ships attempting the passage with drones and missiles. So do ship owners and captains want to risk the loss of an oil tanker, the environmental disaster that could create, the lives of their crew, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, insuring a trip through the strait got a lot more expensive. I chatted with Neil Roberts from Lloyd's Market in London, which has been pricing the risk of sending cargo through war zones for centuries, since the days of the British Empire when the ships in question had sails, right? And he says that coverage is available, but the price has to match the risk, right? And this is very risky. Now, the U.S. has now offered to provide both insurance and naval escorts to ships in the region. But yesterday, the agency handling that insurance said that they can cover up to $20 billion total. JP Morgan Chase has estimated that the need is more like $350 billion. And as for the U.S. escorts, Roberts said that a lot of ships would really rather have a neutral escort from a country that is not a part of this war.
Camila, can the world replace the oil that is stuck waiting to come through the strait?
Partially. So we're talking about some 20 million barrels per day that's not moving. There are some stockpiles globally, and some oil from the Gulf region can be redirected through pipelines, if those aren't attacked. Kevin Book is the co-founder of Clearview Energy Partners. He says by his math, the world might make up all but 1 to 3 million barrels.
But that's still an enormous gap.
And that's relying on reserves that would eventually run out.
During other price shocks, after the invasion of Kuwait, for example, the run-up to the war in Iraq, the crises in the 70s, the U.S. was a lot more reliant on oil from the Middle East. Isn't that some solace for investors and consumers?
Yeah, it is different now. The U.S. is the world's top oil producer, making more oil than it uses. That is one reason oil isn't like $200 right now, along with the rise of clean energy. But you have to remember, this is a global market for crude oil. So the oil passing through the Strait would be mostly heading for Asia, not for the U.S. But Americans are still going to feel the price hikes, not just in gasoline, but in everything, because transporting stuff is part of the cost of everything we buy.
NPR's Camilla Dominowski, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Scott.
The Cows, the worthless Negro from Virginia, Gus T., in broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, March 7, 2026. So I have been told. We should be here on Monday. I am a little confused, and for good reason. That's why, generally speaking, I never have any shame or difficulty saying, I am confused, whether it's on air, off air, by myself, crowd, whatever. I generally have no problem about that. Hey, there are many things I don't know. That is true. So, on a lengthy list, we should be here on Monday, but I'm a little confused about what time we should be here on Monday. Our guest is joining us from Europe. I know, unless I've been misinformed, the clocks are going ahead in a few hours, unless I'm confused. I don't, I'm not in charge of that. White people say move the clock, we move the clock. This is not like a uniform switch around the world. Some places around the globe, they don't even observe so-called daylight savings time. So there is a brief period, and I know this because we've been broadcasting long enough that I have been tripped up by this both in the autumn and in the spring. When we've had guests on from different parts of the world, I have had to learn the hard way, like, whoops, it's not the same in terms of everybody goes to daylight savings time at the same time, same moment, same day. Not at all. So generally there is an 8-hour time difference between myself here on the West Coast and folks who are in London. 2 times a year there's a brief window when that shrinks to a 7-hour time window. So I think we could be in that window in a few minutes. So I will have to double check to be sure, but I think we will be on, but it'll just be early Monday with our guest joining us from the UK to discuss the system of white supremacy and white genetic annihilation, and even more equally important, I will say, the importance of racial classifications. But that'll be Monday. As I said, I just have to get my bearings about the time difference and to confirm that this is in that unique window where it's no longer an 8-hour time difference, where it'll be a 7-hour time difference for us. So I'll confirm all of that, make sure. But either way, we'll still be here early. It will not be the normal later in the day broadcast time, early because of those wacky time differences around the world and global system of white supremacy. But that'll be Monday. Looking forward to it. That's it. The tidbits that we heard in the news. One, I will make sure to give our condolences. The family attempted counter-racist Bernard Lafayette. They have pictures of he and Dr. Martin Luther King. I suspect, if I had enough time to look, probably he and Jesse Jackson as well. But legend in the Tennessee area, apparently many decades of working to fight against white supremacy racism. Folks are doing tributes, especially in the Tennessee area, tributes for his life's work to battle and bring attention to the problem of white supremacy racism. Same thing I've been saying. That's the best you can hope for, really. Until we solve this problem, dedicating our time and energy to replacing white supremacy with justice, you pass. Everyone comes to recognize and appreciate you for your works against racism. Then we heard the unfortunate passing of Michael B. Brown in the Detroit, Michigan area. They said he was an entrepreneur and did lots to help out other black people, other black entrepreneurs in the area, and folks just seemed really devastated by his loss. Sounded like he was way too young to be leaving, Mr. Brown. But one of the things that stood out about all of that, privileged black male, but what stood out was they said he was killed in a triple shooting. Detroit not known as the safest place, at approximately 4 a.m. And then you heard lots of discussion about we need to get some sort of ordinance in the city about restricting how late these after-hours establishments can be open. I want to make sure I state they call him Mike B., Mr. Michael Brown. He did not do anything incorrect. I'm not blaming the victim, as they say. They said he was an entrepreneur, so for all I know, he could have been at one of his establishments. He could have been there on business, checking on a club to buy. I have no information about what he was doing. I'm not in any way insinuating that there was something wrong about what he was doing. I am reminded of Dr. Kamal Kamban, where he said consistently he encouraged black people not to be out late after 10:30, 11 p.m. Try to be in your residence. And he said consistently, constructive things generally do not happen late at night. Generally, you do not hear some of that, man, I got a job interview at 2 a.m. What kind of job is that? I just generally don't hear that from people that are involved in constructive things. A job that you can tell someone about, job that is legal, not going to get you arrested. Generally, they do not do those interviews at 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., generally speaking. He encouraged on a regular basis on this program and, just all the time, especially when he had an opportunity to talk to younger black people, like, hey, you got, children, they start driving and such and going out and all of that. Remind them on a regular basis, nothing constructive happens once it gets late in the system of white supremacy, and that could be a variety of hazards. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Mike B., Mr. Brown, I'm not saying he did anything wrong, but they did say it was 4 a.m. That's really late, and as a result, they are talking about, hey, maybe we need to change this up so that we don't have establishments that are even open at 4 a.m. And they said the same thing Dr. Kamban said, that hey, you can go out, have a good time, do whatever you're doing, go home. I even say you can be in the club. The evidence shows you can be in the establishment and they will shoot up the establishment. It's not like they wait for you to come outside, be, courteous, civil about this thing. So I just encourage, hey, be at home. And Fuller says no parties. I know that's not popular, especially for younger folks and even a lot of older folks. Like, what? We got to go out and shake, especially it's getting warmer now. We about to have spring break. Like, please. Fuller does say no parties for a reason. Condolences to the family of Mike Brown. Don't be out late, 4 a.m. All the time I see that. Bad things at 4 a.m. Car accidents, shootings, police, just bad things. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 1 a.m. Be in the house. And better yet, not just be in the house. Be asleep. They had the report about, they said, President Trump and his administration, they are criminalizing so-called immigrants on social media. I thought he was going to use X and all of that and be friendly and get him a few followers and such. He said that on 60 Minutes on the campaign trail a few years back, the first time that he was running for the White House. What I found important in that segment, many components, but what I found important, they spoke with Leo Chavez, emeritus professor of anthropology, like Dorothy Roberts' white daddy, at the University of California, Irvine. He said it is particularly effective. They don't even provide no context promoting our program. Said it's particularly effective. They don't show no context. They just show images of dark, brown men. That's the brown male privilege. I got brown male privilege. They don't have to be criminals, child molesters. So you just throw an image up, and we do the OJ treatment, so we darken him up real good. So we show him a really dark image of Gomez, Felipe, Juan, Leroy, because you know we got some dark people that live down there. Leroy, then say hola, Leroy. And they put them up there and say that's really effective to criminalize these so-called immigrants. What? All you got to do is put some dark dudes up there and, they going to rape us all. Oh, Lord, we got to get that wall up, man. Get the ICE detention. What is it? Alligator Alcatraz. Oh, Lord, got to get Felipe and Leroy, Hispanic Leroy. Oh, come on. And then they use black male privilege, brown male privilege. Come on. Let's see, white genetic annihilation I would add in there too. If you got to put brown men up, they get really scare folks to get these ICE detention facilities constructed quickly. Within that, they said that the ICE apparatus that they have constructed this massive surveillance system of white supremacy. But they said now they bypass the judge. We're going to curse them out and call them names anyway, you old lap dogs. They said we bypass the judge and we do what they said the administrative subpoena. We don't even have to go and get authorization. Say, hey, we got a search warrant. We're going to go to the folks at X. We go to our buddy Elon Musk. Say, hey, this fella been on here posting, doxing us, they say, even though, you can use public information to find out who these folks are. He's been posting information about ICE that we don't like. Who is this fella? Give us his IP address. Give us, all the data that you have on this fella. Wow. That would be something to consider. Not that I would, tell anyone to think that you have anonymity on any of these social media platforms, any of them, whether you have your actual name affiliated with the account or what have you. I am sure when they talk about these platforms are for free, even though you can pay for the upgrades, but I mean generally you can use them for free, believe they can assess exactly where you are, how you're accessing their service, what type of device, phone, tablet, computer, all of that good stuff. So I wouldn't think you have any anonymity anyway. That would be something that, I would think about posting about racism, period. Really anything related to racism, because I've seen that before. I saw this with people who were posting about Black Lives Matter with the other Mike Brown or George Floyd or whatever it was. I've seen this repeatedly. So anything that even seems like it might be related to them scary brown dudes, them scary black dudes, them scary non-white people in general, anything like that, and you're posting about it on social media, they might be, probably are tracking me. COINTELPRO version, 59.0. Let's see. They spoke about the Waverly 2, speaking of black male privilege. This is Mr. Terrence Richardson and Ferone Claiborne. For whatever reason, I like that name, Mr. Claiborne. He should have been like president at the bank or something, one of the founders of crypto technology or something. And they messed around and make up some charge to convict him on and say, yeah, you killed a white police officer. Yeah, lock you up for all these decades. I thought it was so pitiful, man. Mr. Fuller said that about us, that Mr. Richardson and Mr. Claiborne, they said we were young. We were young guys when they came and, falsely accused us of this crime, which they know we didn't do. And I've heard that so many times in the system of white supremacy and generally with a black male, where they know Mr. Claiborne did not kill no officer. But still, we gonna, hit you at Geronimo Pratt. That's what I'm saying. I've heard that we talked about this over and almost got O.J. Simpson. Really, they did have people talk about him like he's guilty for, 30 years before he passed away? And on to this day? But that sort of thing is so common. We know you didn't, which also means, hey, are we letting a cop killer off? Yep. He said, they told him, he said, hey, somebody got to wear this crime, and right now it's you two privileged black males. Sorry about that. That's just the way it go. They found us innocent. Hey, that's just the way it go. And they could have got the death penalty. Like, ooh-wee, can you get the death penalty for killing a white cop and they know you didn't even do it? That's how they, bribe you, coerce you, force you into, better take the plea deal. And they even got the data, dark dudes. They scary. They so scary. We got to give them the death penalty. They got data on that too. That's old and moldy. Got to give in. I've seen, I got the picture of them on social media, probably being followed for that too, but these are not like the lightest. They're not like President Obama's complexion, so, ooh-wee. You go in there in front of that jury that probably ain't going to have nobody that look like you on it in Virginia. You go in there and you done killed a white police officer, and you didn't even fess up to it. You gonna come in here and plead not? Ooh-wee. Where you plug the chair in at? Let me go ahead and get wet. Remember George Stinney? He was 14. At least we got to live a little bit longer than George. That's about what happened. Then they said it's quick too. Like, we don't sit here and mess around where you're gonna be on death row for no 20 years and getting fat, lifting weights and all that. We get you on out of here quick. I think they said in the report, they said, man, what if we had chose to say, no, we're going to plead not guilty. We're going to fight this. We're not going to take no plea deal. We might not even be here. It took us 26 years to even get this far. I just told you, you don't get to languish on no 26 years on death penalty in Virginia. I don't think they have death penalty anymore, but still. Man. Let's say black male privilege. Black male privilege. Waverly, do you get a nickname? See, that's what they do for you. That's part of your black male privilege because they put that on T-shirts and posters and whatnot. Waverly too. They said they make clothes and such. They put that on their clothing design. Waverly too. Let's see. And their attorney even, Jarrett Adams. That's another privileged black male. He's an attorney now, but he also, they said, had been wrongly accused. He could have got the death penalty or whatever else. Scary black male. Let's see. Speaking of scary and black people, we heard the report, the Houston School Board, they're planning to close 12 schools in the Houston area. I asked the bot immediately, the closings of these schools, is it going to disproportionately impact black children? This is what the bot said. Evidence. Lots of links here, so hopefully we didn't get no AI slopped. I did start clicking on the link, so it looks pretty solid. Evidence suggests that the recent Houston School District school closures disproportionately impact black and so-called Hispanic children. The HISD Board of Managers unanimously voted on February 26 to close 12 schools at the end of 2026 academic year. Critics, community advocates, and elected officials have highlighted several ways these closures specifically affect black, now they use the C word, communities, but again, if people can just come in and tell you quick, hey, your school is closed. You say, whoa, wait a minute, we need it. I don't want to hear it. School, matter of fact, a dozen of your schools, they're done for. Out of here. You got about 2 months and it's done. So have your fun. get whatever keepsakes you can, and beat it. Doing something else come September. That ain't no community. It continues. Demographic disparity. Oh, and there were links for the portion that I just read. Houston Defender and actually Houston Public Media. Quite a few links. Concentrated impact. Advocates point out that almost all of the 12 schools slated for closure are located in under-resourced Black and so-called Hispanic neighborhoods. That's where Devontae stayed. Remember Devontae? Historical context. Data from community organizations indicate that since 2000, 65% of HISD school closures have occurred in majority Black neighborhoods. They didn't even use that black and brown there. They just the Negroes, even though Black students comprise only about 23% of the district's population. In many Black and working class neighborhoods, whatever that means, schools serve as vital community institutions where families gather for events and support. Teacher presence. Families fear the closure will reduce the presence of Black educators in these communities. That is massive, because I would think if these schools had lots of Black children, I would think that there probably were, because nobody wants to teach Leroy, there probably were a substantial number of Black educators there. And the pattern that I've seen consistently, New Orleans and all the way back to so-called school integration, when they get rid of a Black school, so-called, they get rid of the Black teacher. Like, the best you can hope for maybe is to get a mop at the new cool spiffy white school. Maybe you get a mop or a plunger. Maybe. And they might not even need you there. Let's see. Oh, and the transportation, because they talked about that in the report. They said, what are we going to do about transportation? You're going to bus our children all the way across town. Texas is so massive. Like, woo, they have commutes like you would not believe in Texas. They said you either drive or catch the bus, your child, and go to the closed school that you used to attend, and from there you get on another bus and you go to the new spiffy white school. What? Like, man, I got to ride across Texas now to go to school? Come on. And probably going to be a lot more of this with school closures and such. Figure out lots of different ways to justify all this, but probably be a lot more of that. That would be something to think about if I was a non-white parent and I was thinking about having children. Let's see. The report that was on 60 Minutes. I've said sometimes 60 Minutes. Frequently, they have reports that talk about racism, like all the time, and all the way back for years. Columbine, they talked about the racism there, and Timothy McVeigh, and, lots and lots of racism. Sometimes they will have so much information on the system of white supremacy racism, everything will be, in terms of, they normally will do like 3 segments on their 1-hour show. All 3 segments sometimes are directly about white supremacy racism. This weekend was pretty much one, this past weekend. The first segment was about the conflict in Iran. I think these are non-white people that are being killed. That's, in my view, obviously white supremacy racism. The next one was about the judges being threatened. We heard that one, even the visual on that one, because the people that were doing the threats, these were obviously white race soldiers. They had all the racist paraphernalia up there, and even some of the people that they showed doing this, classified as white. And then they had the segment on the school shootings. They mentioned Parkland, Uvalde, Oxford High, that's in Michigan, and Appalachia High, that's Colt 45 down in Georgia. What do all of these have in common? All of them white shooters. They could have added a bunch more, racks of them. Even some of the ones in Tennessee, even some of the ones with little transgender shooters. But white. We talked about that. Dr. Angeline Spaulding Flowers, we were studying Columbine, and she said, hey, the thing that we do not do, and even I can say 60 Minutes, they've talked about school shootings so many times they do have reports where they have called out specifically, hey, this is a white child problem. I played some of that audio when we were studying Columbine. Could have played it there. They didn't say it this time, though, although the pattern remains. That, in fact, a part of it. Why ain't we made no progress? Why have we been talking about this and all we got is a few prayers and hand wringing and woe is us and maybe we get metal detectors and all the rest of it and we still ain't got no problem, no nothing on all of this? Hey, maybe if you had prosecuted C.O.W.S, Eric Harris's parents from way back, maybe we would have made some progress on all of this. People would have seen, 30 years ago. Oh my goodness, can't be letting my children have no guns and pipe bombs and all the rest of it. And oh my God, I better go in here and check my child's room from time to time. Maybe they done stashed some pipe bombs on me. Maybe they got their hands on the anarchist cookbook. I better do my job as a parent. Darn tootin'. Maybe we would have made some progress on all of this. I wish they didn't have statute of limitation. Go back and get C.O.W.S. They are releasing those depositions. We are on the clock, folks. 2027. Snuck up on us. I bet we're not going to hear very little from C.O.W.S once those depositions are made public next year. That's the questions that they were posed by the victims' parents and such after all the carnage happened, and they didn't do no prosecuting of all those white parents up there in Colorado. Asked all them questions, and they were going to just ask the questions and then shred them. And said, no, we got to say this. Well, we won't let anybody look at it for 20 years. Well, the clock is almost up. 2027. She should have been prosecuted too, along with Colt 45 Gray's white dad, Colin, for sure. Thankfully found guilty, all counts, lock him up. The only thing I thought was mildly interesting, they said that, dang, they convicted the white dad before Colt 45 Gray's trial. He hasn't even been convicted yet, although they did say, they got video and everything else. Like, I can't imagine him walking in court and saying that he didn't do this, so it should be academic. But, dang, convicting. Maybe, they should have been doing this all along as opposed to making excuses and saying that old Reb and Dill got brain troubles and all the rest of it. Nah, man, hold these parents accountable. Maybe that would have stopped some. Maybe old Colt 45's white pappy would have thought twice. Maybe my son doesn't need access to a gun. He goes out and shoots up the high school. They might blame me, as they should. I do want to add, if it had been Leroy, Jamal, Devontae, if we had been shooting up the school for the past 30 years, they would have been trying and convicting these parents so fast, like, oh my, they would have convicted your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your auntie, your uncle. If you got any babysitters, be getting them too. They'd have got the whole neighborhood, like, what? What? Especially Leroy going and shooting up the school, like, let it had been Isaiah Shoals. You go shoot up a school full of white children. But wouldn't have been no 30 years of begging. We got to hold these parents accountable for this carnage. We wouldn't have had to be. Shh. I wouldn't have interviewed Mr. Shoals. He'd have been in the death chair. Death penalty. Anyway. Isaiah Shoals, not forgotten. Let's see. The judges threatened. That was on 60 Minutes as well. That's what I said. All of the segments were about white supremacy, racism, and in a variety of ways. They started with Judge, Kuhnhauer. That's it. Kuhnhauer. And he is right here in Seattle, Washington. But he said, I have faced all kinds of threats before we got to the birthright citizenship thing. I faced all kinds of threats and attacks and such. He said, I prosecuted the Montana militiamen, and I had to have round-the-clock security. I said, the Montana militia? Is that? Yep. White terrorists. Again, all of that, like Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State, a little bit of Canada, Pacific Northwest, like haven for all of that. We need to get the white ethno-state, and because they don't have a lot of black people in that specific region anyway. Anywho, but he said, I'd been threatened by the Montana militiamen. Then said, now we got all these Trump supporters, the MAGA people, they mad because I said I didn't support ending the birthright to citizenship. Now, that is also directly white supremacy racism, because you got decreasing numbers of little white people being born. So they're talking about non-white people born here. You automatically become a citizen. Oh no, we need to get rid of that. That's you gonna sneak in little Gomez Jr. on us. Oh no, we need to get rid of that. And the judge said, oh no, that's not constitutional. Judge Kuhnauer said, oh no, that's not constitutional. I'm not going to go along with that. And you get all of these. That's why I said, if you watch that report, when they show you the people that are doing this, oh man, you see all of the paraphernalia of the system of white supremacy on full. And again, like I said, what is this about? Oh, we don't want no more dark people to be citizens, which is like forever under the system of white supremacy racism. Citizen is supposed to be white, and that's worldwide. Australia, Britain, wherever. Citizen, white. Even South Africa, citizen, white. But they do all these threats and all the rest of it, and, we come kill you and all that. Matter of fact, it was so many layers of white supremacy and the name calling. Fuller got that on the 10 stops for a reason. Individuals classified as white, and I mean our president is the sterling illustration of that. White people are the champion name callers. We do not need to imitate them at all. Name calling, let that be white culture. He's sitting around calling a federal judge. I thought they supposed to, you're honorable and all the rest of it. You lapdog. Like, what? You fool. All that name calling. President Trump is a world champion name caller. Remember Crooked Hillary? Like, he'd be firing off. Let white people do all of the name calling, but that name calling has consequences. It starts with calling Judge Kuhnauer, you lapdog and a fool, and then, oh Lord, man, I need 24-hour security. Even they spoke with Judge, make sure I get her full name correct, Judge Esther Salas, I think that's how you say her name, district judge. She is not accepted as white. I think they widely recognize her as so-called being the first Latina district judge. But when I looked at her, she looked like she has got, a touch of the tar brush. She looks like she has a little too much melanin to be accepted as a white person. Like, she does not look like no Cameron Diaz, or I've seen a number of other folks. So I'd say, oh yeah, that's a white person. No. The fact that that's the judge, the one that talked about where she said she faced all these threats and then they came and killed her son, that could just be flagrant white supremacy. That we're going to show you how we feel about having a non-white judge. And then use her son's name to place all these threats. We send the pizzas in her son Daniel's name. White terrorist activity. So we got the champion name calling, mad because non-white people are citizens. Even I'd have to say that's another one. Can you imagine a universe if that was Leroy and Lakeisha and we were mad about whatever, anything, you pick what it is, and we're mad and we're going to go around and dox these judges and put out their personal information and threaten them and call them names and send them pizzas and all this. So can you imagine? We would be black identity extremists out of existence. Have us asking for some kind of plea deal like the Waverly 2, man. They said that report I included, it seems like a whole lot of this, like there were many opportunities from the school shootings, and you had the parents there lamenting. They went and talked to the victims of Ethan Crumbley up in Michigan. He's white as well. They convicted his white parents too, as they should have. But they went and talked to them, and they lamented like, man, we can't do nothing about this, and they give all this immunity to all these white people, and we can't do nothing about this. It was a whole lot of opportunities for me to say, white people do not care about children. That's where I started saying that. It was Sandy Hook, also a white shooter. But that's where I started saying that, because I said, man, I said the same thing they did. Like, man, they just keep watching these school shootings over and over and over, and they don't do nothing. And then all the other evidence followed to support, yep, that is true. White people do not care about children. The Catholic priests, that could be, I mean, it's many, many pieces of evidence where, hey, I could just pick one thing. The Catholic Church, since that's worldwide and they keep uncovering scandals every day. We talked about this over and over and over, and it's the same thing every time. Master deceivers. They said in this investigation where they uncovered 72 alleged priests who engaged in all of this child rape and sexual abuse, they said the churches in Providence, the diocese secret church archives. You do not have people who are ignorant about racism, white supremacy, or the sexual abuse if they have secret archives documenting all of this child rape that went on for decades. That's over over a quarter century. Even over a half century, because I think they did say going back to 1950, so I was right the first time. Over a half century. And like I said, I've heard this over and over and over. You could swap out the Catholic Church and put in the Boy Scouts of America, because I heard the exact same thing. Read the exact same thing, that they got hidden secret archives, probably encrypted and written in hieroglyphics, where they document all these decades of white people raping children and how they aided and abetted and lied and covered this up and allowed all of this to continue. What can you conclude other than white people do not care about children? In fact, in studying what does it mean to be white, I for sure think a component of it should be, and especially since, hey, you want to talk about LGBTQ and all of that, make sure the Catholic Church, the Olympics, include all of that. What does it mean to be white? Sexual activity for white people, because hasn't this been a dominant part of Area 8 over the last 25 years? That's our favorite area to discuss. That should be included. For Sally Hemings, for Essie Mae Washington Williams, that should be, some say for Devontae, that should be included. And then maybe we'll reconsider when Gus T say we should be kind of prudish given white people's documented behavior, which includes Seattle's own Mary Kay. We should be kind of prudish when they get to bedroom activity, because, man, why y'all spend a whole lot of time with the children and such. Any hoodles. That's the diocese. And then we also heard, I said this at least a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, all those pardons for white people, and we still waiting. Brian J. Cole, black male that they accused of putting those pipe bombs. Where is the pardon? You got Rike and everybody else. We got to get Brian J. Cole too. Go on and let him walk. We done with January. He a hostage too, right? But I said, hey, there should be a study. I do not think Andrew Paul Johnson is an anomaly. I said, how many of the people, January 6 hostages, rioters, insurrectionists, race soldiers, whatever you need to call them, how many of these folks, either before January 6 or afterwards, have some sort of documented history related to child sexual abuse, child pornography, possession of child sexual content, soliciting minors for sexual activity, sexual abuse of a child, any of it, any form of it. How many of these individuals have any sort of documented history of this misconduct? Because this is not the first report that I've seen about more than one, I think more than 5 of these people being engaged in some sort of child rape or child abuse. How many people are we talking about? Because it was like 1,000, more than 1,000 people that got pardons. Certainly thousands of people participated in all that January 6th. How many of the folks that got pardons are in some sort of child sexual deviance? And then even how many of the people, period, that were at January 6th have some sort of evidenced connection to child sexual misbehavior? It seems like there could be, an important correlation there. That also would make me think, like, dang, the folks who came down here, like, what, you say you're patriots and citizens? What are you doing in your spare time when you're not, getting your pipe bombs and everything else to come to the Capitol? And, we're going to jump on and beat enforcement officers and all the rest of it, see if we can kill Nancy Pelosi. What are you doing in your free time? You with an 11-year-old? What? What does it mean to be white? And I'm humbly submitting, just based on a little bit of evidence that I've seen, that I've been looking, Andrew Paul Johnson ain't no anomaly. It's quite a few of them who were out there January 6th. When they said from that segment, they said they were talking about the police officers, some of his white brethren who came back cursing them, and you should be put down like a dog, and already name calling, and the metaphors of violence. I'm telling folks they should be tarred and feathered. I said, see, there we go again. Now, see, they got to denigger you. They got to figure out a way to blacken you up, and sometimes literally. That whole history even, because sometimes the Klan apparently would do this. They would come and tar and feather you, and that's a part of the disgrace. You've been, just like the minstrel show thing, see? You've been blackened up. They still got to say that, even though I don't think they go out and actually tar and feather anyone anymore. But I wouldn't be shocked if it did happen. But even the language of it, you should be tarred and feathered, you old nigger-loving. And they're talking to police officers, same way. We got to keep the Waverly 2 locked up because they are cop killers. And you saying, you almost like, yeah, we got some cops line to get these two. They need to get out of here too. Anyway, I got in our report about the gas. I figure there are so many reports about the conflict in Iran currently, and that'll probably be ongoing for a minute. I was reminded, I wish I had found, I've been slack. I have failed to locate the audio where Mr. Fuller said specifically, he thinks, and he used this as a metaphor, but I think it fitting, he said that I think that racists is like they have a button where they can instigate conflict in the area known as the Middle East, and just they press the button, oh my goodness, we've got missiles launched and conflict. Oh my God! Anytime if they need to distract from something or get you to not pay attention to what's happening, there we go. Conflict in the minute. They just bring that up, every 18 months or every 8 months, depending on when they need it to get other things accomplished. But he had said this on a program, not some years back, but I thought it was super important. I just neglected to grab, because I for sure would have sound clipped that at this moment. But I do know folks have already been talking about seeing the impact of the, I guess, most recent conflict in this region at the gas pump, and seeing significantly higher prices. And just in time, what did I just say? Getting warmer and headed towards the summer months where more people are traveling and taking road trips and all the rest of it, and have to pay way more. I guess they said, you have more people who have more energy efficient modes of transportation and e-vehicles and all of that. So maybe it doesn't have as much of an impact. I would tend to think that it would be more people classified as white who have these, high efficiency vehicles and can more easily absorb paying a few extra nickels at the gas pump. But that would certainly be something to think of. If anything, maybe the extra price at the gas pump, I will stay indoors later in the evening. I won't do all that running out in the streets and such. Since gas is up a little bit, I will shut it down early, be inside so I can be safe, do some studying, get some rest, save some petrol. That's just, my thoughts. Any hoodles. Let's see. I am finished up with all of my commentary and such. I am not going to beg for callers' participation. Folks have thoughts, observations to share, because I went back and looked what I had just said about who's been on the program or who's coming on the program on Monday, where I have to get my bearings about the time. But man, since December, we have had guests on the program from Puerto Rico, Germany, Australia, Spain, Norway, Canada, and we even had a caller from London. I've spoken to people from all over the known universe. I just don't think I should have to beg to speak to victims of racism about news or really anything. So I'm not going to request, beg for callers for Saturday. I'll do my review of the news and such. If folks have thoughts or what have you, you can do *61. But and to be totally truthful, I told you all I am estranged from C.O.W.S listeners. We're not even interested talking about the same thing. When I go and look, I told you, I just go and look. The people that, contact me and what they talk about, things that they present me with, like, man, am I supposed to go and beg to talk to them or to get their feedback when they say things of this nature? Now, we got the conflict happening in the Middle East where I said, oh man, so-called Middle East, where I said, oh man, I wish I had saved Mr. Fuller, saying they got the button. That is a metaphor, but I wish I had saved that. That does not move me from system of white supremacy at all. In fact, I have seen conflicts in the so-called Middle East my entire life. I was not born 5 years ago. I have seen this over and over and over. And apparently, from what I'm told, they've had conflict in this part of the world before I was born. This has been going on, I'm not going to say forever, but this has been going on for a very long time. Just a part of the system of white supremacy racism. But I have to point out, I really can't beg for commentary, because frequently when I do get commentary, it's a lot of interrupting and or what someone just wrote into me. I can only conclude this has to be somewhat related to what's happening in so-called Middle East. But they wrote in and said, Mr. Fuller said, 1, white supremacists, 2, white people, 3, non-whites. They put a line, and then they wrote 1, Zionists, 2, white people, 3, non-whites. I think we need to refocus on those who want to do harm to us. Now, certainly victims guaranteed qualified, but I mean, really, am I supposed to beg to talk to people if this is the content that I'm going to get, if this is what they're going to say? Oh my gosh. Like, for everyone, if this is your conclusion, if you want to complain about black people having sexual intercourse with white people, do not contact me. If you want to complain, talk about Zionism, do not contact me. You want to complain, talk about black people who are not born here, do not contact me. I'd prefer like unfollow. There's no reason for us ever to have communication. I've been here for 17 years. I'm not changing my mind. You're right. It has been Zionism all this time. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And even, I'm just pointing out, I guess not all white people are Zionists. Not all white people are racist, even if I'm using the logic of what I'm presented with here. I guess if we're refocusing on Zionists first, not all white people want to do us harm. I have never in 17 years heard anyone pick out, distinguish between the white people that you all say are not racist and the white people who want to do us harm. Either way, like I said, I'm left. Am I really supposed to beg for people to interrupt me and you don't know what you're talking about? We need to focus on Zionism and all the rest of it. No, and particularly, I can easily talk to people from all over the world and not about entertainment. I am not begging to talk to non-white people at all about anything. And I'm even reminded the genesis for the compensatory call-in was non-white people said, I don't have anyone to talk to about racism. I said, oh, okay, well, I guess we could try that, see if people. We have the news at the beginning. It was not like that at the beginning because people would call in non-white, presumably I can't see them, but it would every time drift to television, sexual intercourse, either sex with white people or just our gripes about sexual activity and our relationships not being high quality in Area 8. There is way more to talk about with regards to racism, white supremacy. Now, it may be the people who talk about those things, non-white people, victims of racism, just are not interested in talking with Gus T. No problem. But dang, like, I just am not. I think that is totally, even the spectating, like to have people who consistently just spectate. This is not for spectating. Like, man, I hope we do not just, that is not the bulk of our activities, to just sit around and spectate and spectate and spectate and spectate. Like, man, that is such a spectacular waste of time. And that's why, a massive reason why, it's not the total, it's many reasons, but that is a big part of the reason why I do not take any suggestions for the book club. In fact, I have contempt for suggestions for the book club. People can sit for years, not like once or twice, for years make suggestions and do not participate. And when I say no participation, I mean no participation. Like, oh, okay, I got to work 15 jobs and I don't have time to tune into the program and listen. Like, okay, you could at least write 3 sentences. I mean, we text all day long. You can't text a sentence about the book. Most of the time we spend like a good month, month and a half, sometimes even 2-3 months on a book if it's long enough. You don't have 1 sentence to offer on the book? Come on. Come on. Like, and for that to happen on books where you suggest it, that's why I said that is a massive contributing reason as to why, no thanks. Like, I'm not interested in you all picking books and then not participating at all. If Gus T's personality or whatever it is that repulsive, oh my God, just can't participate, no problem. I came here to talk to white people. You can check my record. My man said, I said that from day one. From day one. And I can only add vehemently, for the amount of times it has come up for people to say, well, I don't agree with you, Gus T, about this. All white people, even the email, Zionists, white people, non-whites. Like I said, so not all white people is Zionists or racists. Got it. That comes up so consistently. No problem. Hopefully when all this is over, we will see. Is that true? Are all white people racist? And even if it's not true, we'll be able to accurately identify now which were the white people that were not racist, and why weren't they more helpful? But that's for way, way down the road once we figure all this out. Anyway, I am not going to beg to talk to non-white people for any reason. I will just point out our listeners are very unhelpful, like the interrupting. Y'all don't even make comments. Like the number of times that I look and people that do make comments, it's not even a sentence. For counter-racism science to get great show or bad show. Even, in fact, I remember when we had a vehement grouse, where we had tech difficulties for a program last month. We have done 2,500 programs plus over 17 years. No computer, no phone for the first 210. We had tech issues for one day, and for a person who doesn't even comment, now I need to speak up to grouse and complain about your tech problems today. When we had, what did I just say? I'm pointing it out because, hey, how many programs do you hear people talk about counter-racism where they can truthfully say since December, this is not going back from when we came back on the air in 2009, this is from December 2025, we have spoken with directly people from Norway, Spain, Puerto Rico, Germany, Australia, Canada, and London. If Gus T is that lame domestically amongst the U.S., no problem, but I'm not going to sit here and beg. Y'all got to come. Whatever, continue to talk about sports, athletics, or whatever, or even whomever else you think is constructive. Even I add for neutralizing workplace racism all the time. If there are people that talk about this better, or even there are other resources that are helpful, could you all please share? No one has ever shared a single resource. I've said that for years. Anyway, you all do what you do. I do what I do. We will be here on Monday. I don't even know the time because white people are switching the clocks in specific locations on the planet. So once I can kind of get my bearings Sunday to see now, what does it look like now? Is it 7? Okay, then I'll know. But I do know it is not the normal time because the time difference between here and Europe. So we will be here early Monday. I think that's the 9th, March 9, early March 9, for our broadcast. Global system of white supremacy, race, and racial classifications will be at the forefront for Monday. Normally, that is like the first question we get to on the program. Are you classified as a white person, non-white person, white man, white, whatever it is? I cannot stress, emphasize enough. That is always, even if you're going to read a book, if someone tells you, get such and such a book, it's great, it's constructive, you should check this out. Oh, okay, is this a white person wrote this, non-white person? I'm not saying you should read or shouldn't read it based on them saying that it was a white author, non-white author, just you should know that. Someone writing a book, dare I say, if someone writes a book about racism, white supremacy, that information should be included in the book. If it's making sure that they get a picture of themselves on the front of the book so you can see them immediately and, oh, okay, this black dude wrote this book. Okay, we can continue with that. But that should be included. It should not be you get, halfway through a book, you've read the whole book, a paragraph into the book, and wait a minute, is this a white person or not? Man. And I'm saying as someone, this has happened to me a number of times, either where I did not know the racial classification of the person writing the book, or I was confused where I thought it was a non-white person writing the book and it was a white person, or the other way around. Get that information. I think that is massively important to know. Am I reading a book written by a race soldier? Am I reading a book written by a victim of racism? For me, that has a massive impact on my brain computer, how I process information, how I think about what is presented to me. Monday, man, I would still have questions. I would still evaluate. Truth is truth. That's number one. Is what is written, is what is on this page in this book accurate? That should not change whether the author is white or non-white now. However, the presentation of this truth or falsehood, I would think about it differently if this is being given to me by a white author or a non-white author, whether the book is true or not. I would even have different questions for the author if it's a white person or a non-white person. So racial classification. Are we talking to someone white? Are we talking to someone non-white? Very important. I concede I am not very good at picking out racial classifications. I make a lot, and I generally make errors of false positives, meaning I will think that a non-white person is white and then come find out, oh, no, this is a non-white person who just, maybe they have one white parent, something like that. Blake Griffin type. I never thought Blake Griffin was white, but I'm just using him for an example of someone public. I would be the type of person who is ignorant enough to make a mistake like, oh, man, Blake Griffin is a white dude type of a thing, and then have someone come in, no, he's, no. You're confused. Get it together. He's not a white person. Not a white person. I generally make that sort of error. Asking always number one question. We have guests on the program. Are we talking to a white person, non-white person? That will be on display this here Monday, early. I don't know what time, but early. That's it. Hit the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com. We will have review for the 48-hour segment on Sade Robinson. Visit the website. Support her mom's foundation. Terrible. Just having to even go back and remember having the visuals from the trial come back and all the rest of it. Horrible tragedy. Support her mother's foundation. Sade's Voice Foundation. Sade's Voice Foundation.com. Support the foundation. But yes, we'll have a review of the 48-hour segment, which I did not think was constructive. I did think it was great to be able to see Sade's sister, Adriana. She has grown up a lot over the time since all this has happened. I guess it has been 2 years. But still, that notwithstanding, I did not think it was very constructive global system of white supremacy, racism. So hopefully I'll have my review of that done soon, as well as book reviews. We've read so many books and talked about so many new books over the past 2-3 months or so. So get some of that done as well. Lots of work to be done. That said, we'll be here on Monday, 8 or not 8, not normal time, early because the time difference. So early on Monday. I'll put the time down once I figure it out sometime Sunday. You can check social media. That said, much obliged for the folks tuning in. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Although, again, as I said, I am not cool with all of the spectators. Why are you even here to just spectate? Nothing to contribute? That is not helpful either. That said, sobriety would be best. We do not, especially if you're going to be out late. I do not think being under the influence is helpful at 4 p.m., but ooh-wee. Generally speaking, if you're going to be out at 4 a.m., we cannot be sober. So, and that just adds to the danger of everything. Sobriety under a system of white supremacy would be best so that we can make, hopefully, safer decisions and keep ourselves out of harm's way on a planet rife with danger. Creator, we ask that you remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop. The champion name caller, one of them is in the White House. Remind us, stop name calling people classified as black. Leave all the name calling to white people. Leave all of the name calling to white people. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out Thanks all for tuning in. No thanks to the spectators.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.